listening to Co-op 91.7 FM, radio for people, not for profit. Welcome to the Austin Public Library radio show, Volumes. I'm your host, Kanya Lyons, and...
I'm Mike Wheat. Each week, we'll talk to librarians and other superheroes who make the Austin Public Library a hub of knowledge, technology, and inspiration for our community. Volumes. We bring the library to you every Wednesday at 7 p.m.
Today we're going to interview Bill Donaldson and talk about the Bad Film Festival. But before we do that, we'd like to talk a little bit about the library. First of all, my favorite thing about the library is how sustainable it is.
What do you mean?
Well, a lot of people don't get what I mean, but so I love to consume culture, read books, listen to music, watch movies, but I don't have a budget to afford all that stuff all the time. So the coolest thing I think about the library is I can borrow what I want when I want it and return it when I'm done. I don't have to worry about storing it. I don't have to worry about disposing of it, think that it's going to maybe end up in a landfill or something.
Right. Consume all that without consuming. That's good policy.
Absolutely. And then, if they don't have what I want at the branch by my house, I can just find it online on the catalog and then
you're consuming less gas to go get it. Yeah.
Yeah, that's right. I just pick it up at the branch that's closest to me and...
Yeah, not to mention, continuing education, access to design and stuff that I like a lot that I can't afford all the time. Some of the design books are really expensive and, it's trendy. So you only need that for a little while for influence. Once you've got it, you can give it back.
Absolutely. And the cool thing is that when you borrow stuff from the library, you know that stuff is never going to end up in the landfill because Recycled Reads recycles all of the library's books. They either sell them in the bookstore or they repurpose them or...
Yeah, folks, we have a store for that called Recycled Reads.
Yeah, so Mindy Reed is actually going to tell us a little bit about Recycled Reads. We have a clip right here.
The Austin Public Library's Reuse, Repurpose, and Recycling Center is more than just a bookstore. We have live music, open mic poetry, puppet shows, book discussion groups, knitting groups, and more. Recycled Reads accepts donations of books, music, including CDs and vinyl records, cassette tapes, movies, CDs, VHS, puzzles, and more. Recycled Reads, a great way to support the City of Austin's Zero Waste Initiative.
The library also has a couple of upcoming Talk Green to Me programs that focus on topics of sustainability. For instance, Keep Austin Wild Peacefully Coexisting with Coyotes. That's happening over at the St. John branch, 2 p.m., October 29th. That's a Saturday, and that's our location on the northeast side.
We have some other cool programs that are taking place at the Austin Public Library. Blair Parsons, who is a reference librarian at the Central Library, is going to tell us a little bit about some of that.
On Saturday, October 29th, the Terrazas Branch Library hosts Talk Green to Me, How to Grow Green in Austin. The City of Austin Watershed Protection Department will present gardening techniques and principles to beautify your yard, limit the upkeep your yard needs, and conserve water. The program is Saturday, October 29th from 2:30 to 3:30 at the Terrazas Branch Library. Green thumbs and all thumbs are welcome. On Sunday, October 30th, the Falk Central Library hosts Write Club, a creative writing group led by the Library Foundation's Badger Dog Creative Writing Program. Writing prompts and exercises prime the creative pump. Writers of all genres and experience levels are welcome. Inspire and be inspired by others. Write Club meets the last Sunday of each month from 2 o'clock to 4 o'clock at the Falk Central Library.
What does it take to be a writer? The Austin Public Library's National Novel Writing Month events for teens and tweens will help young writers find out. The library's second program is coming up on November 1st from 5:30 to 7:30 p.m. at the Falk Central Library, where participants can take a free storyboarding workshop from Badger Dog Creative Writing Programs and develop ideas for getting 50,000 words on the page by the end of November. Teens also still have time to join in on the Monstober fun as the library finishes up a month-long series of creepily crafty events. Stop-motion monster movie making at the Carver branch, Frankenfingers at the Windsor Park branch, and dioramas to die for at the Cepeda branch on Thursday, October 27th in the afternoon, and a sock puppet monster festival on Saturday at 2 at the Rees branch. Teens can also learn to sew a friendly felt frog at Sew Happy at the Manchac Road branch, or wrap their brains around some STEM skills with the Teen and Tween STEAM program at the University Hills. Both programs happen at 5 p.m. on Tuesday, November 1st. More library programs and details are at library.austintexas.gov/events.
My name is Ann Minner, and I am a youth librarian at the Austin Public Library. This November, the Austin Public Library is hosting 2 early literacy workshops. The Play, Read, Grow programs present 5 simple practices that can be used every day to get children ready to read. These events are for parents and caregivers, and of course, children are welcome. Details at library.austintexas.gov.
The Texas Talking Book Program provides digital audio, large print, and braille books and magazines to Texans who cannot read standard print due to qualifying visual, physical, or reading disabilities. Reader advisors are on hand to help navigate patrons through thousands of titles available for download to our free digital audio player. To see if you qualify or for more information, visit www.texastalkingbooks.org.
Well, that sounds like fun too. So in
That
the
had a good
studio
beat.
with us today is Bill Donaldson. He is APL's Bad Film Festival organizer, and he's going to talk about how inspiration struck him to harness his enthusiasm for B movies, right?
Does that make you APL's bad boy?
It's been this ongoing film series at the library for years now and has a pretty, a big cult following. But before we get into all that, let's start at the beginning.
Well, tell us about Bill.
Well, I grew up in Houston, Texas, through my childhood and early teens, and then moved out to Los Angeles.
Wow.
And so I had kind of a small town feel with Houston in the '60s, and then, Los Angeles in the '70s. But
So what drew you, or what took you to Los Angeles? A band, a girl, a
Family.
dream? Family. Okay.
yes,
The dream came later.
the dream came later.
So then how did you land in Austin, Texas?
Again, family. Bit by bit, members of my family started moving to Austin, beginning with a sister who moved here in 1981.
So you were still in LA?
No, I was back in Houston, Galveston area.
Oh, okay.
Cool. And so you had a band? You have a band?
I've had bands pretty much nonstop since about 1976.
Excellent. And what instrument do you play?
I'm a guitar player and a singer.
Awesome. Well, maybe we'll get to hear a sample of that at some point in the future. I know you sing at story time at your library branch. So before we talk about that, tell me how did you end up working at the Austin Public Library? What brought you into the library family, so to speak?
Well, I kind of fell into library work right after closing my stained glass studio in 2002. And I was working for about 4 years for a library in a little town called Dickinson, Texas, which is halfway between Houston and Galveston. And I decided after doing some research that I really wanted to move to Austin, and I wanted to work for the Austin Public Library. And my first handful of interviews here didn't quite pan out, but I kept at it. And one friend told me, Don't wait until you've got the job to move, and the job will come. And I moved, and it took a little while, but the job came.
Nice.
And the job was at the right spot.
Oh, fantastic.
So all of you keeping a checklist. We've got musician, glassmaker, and librarian extraordinaire. APL's bad boy.
Well, so you work at the Carver branch of the Austin Public Library, which is a unique branch, has a unique history, and a really diverse group of customers, people that use that library. Do you want to tell us a little bit about, what your day-to-day life is like at the Carver branch of the library?
Well, I'm the senior clerk, so I spend a lot of time interacting with patrons, and that really is one of my favorite parts of the job.
Yeah.
I really love interacting with the people, being able to direct them to this or that item, giving them an idea of what type of things are available. You mentioned that I take part in our branch story time, which to me is just marvelous.
I bet.
It's like the ice cream on the apple pie of my job.
So you sing songs to the little kids when they have their story time?
Yes, I do.
That's so exciting.
And I have a puppet named Mac, who's a 3-foot-long shark.
That's awesome.
Mac the shark.
That's so cool. Well, I guess while we're talking about story times, when is story time over there?
Carver Library has a pajama story time on Monday evenings at 6 o'clock, and then an all-ages story time on Tuesday mornings at 10:15, and a sensory story time on Tuesdays at 11:15.
Oh, wow. So a little something for everybody, working parents, people that are staying at home with their kids. And the sensory friendly, that's pretty awesome. That's the one I would probably want to go to.
So, Bill, you're here and you want to talk about your Bad Film Festival. Well, how did you get started with this?
Well, growing up in Houston, every Saturday night, one of the local TV stations, after the 10 o'clock news, would have a program called Weird, followed by a program called Late Weird. And they had
Even weirder.
all of the low-budget sci-fi and horror films from the 50s and early 60s that I could ever want to see.
They kept it
And
all late night.
That was what you did on a Saturday night.
Yeah.
I guess I started watching those at about 6 years old and
Hooked from then on.
hooked from then on. TV was 3 stations
Yeah.
when I was growing up, and if you weren't watching Weird and Late Weird on Saturday night, there was a test pattern on one station, and on another station there was an odd variety show followed by more eclectic films. So if you didn't want to watch Weird or Late Weird, you might wind up watching 8½.
So that was probably how you knew all the cool kids at school, if you had something to talk about what was on Weird or Weirder.
Yeah, it was one of the things to converse about. Yes.
Yeah.
And then when I moved out to Los Angeles, 16 years old, my very first job was working for the king of B movies, Roger Corman, at New World Pictures.
No way.
Fantastic.
I was a mail clerk sending out posters and trailers and radio spots.
Did you pocket some posters?
I have a handful of posters
Good move,
still in
Bill.
my
Roger
possession.
Corman, I'm so impressed. I had no idea. No wonder you're the B-movie king.
At the Carver Library in the back office, I have a framed poster for Lady Frankenstein with Joseph Cotton and Mickey Hargitay, of all people.
Well, I can imagine I'm probably not the only one that would be excited to see an exhibit of all your posters. You got to consider doing that sometime soon.
That'd be cool.
Yeah. So how's this ongoing series become a local cultural phenomenon?
Well, originally about 5 years ago, I had the idea, because of the tastes of some of the patrons that I would be talking to give it a try. And the management at the Carver branch was a little bit skeptical at the time. And we did a 4-film series with Roger Corman's Bucket of Blood, Wild in the Streets, Zachariah, and 1 Million Years BC with Raquel Welch.
Yeah.
Nice.
And
about the only one I know.
we had a fair but not inspirational turnout, and we kind of stepped away from it for a little while. And then, a little over 3 years ago, a gentleman named Philip Yates joined the staff at the Carver Library, and Mr. Yates and I found that we had very similar tastes in bad films. And
It's power in numbers.
We put together the proposal 3 years ago to start again with the Bad Film Festival. And with the help of your office in AOPP, we were able to get promotional bookmarks. And
For all you outsiders, AOPP is our Office of Programs and Partnerships. We do most of the marketing.
we handed out bookmarks for months in advance of this 5-film series, and we had a turnout that surprised us all.
That's great.
And so
Glad we
now
can help.
we have bookmarks for every single film and every series film that we do, and we have people months ahead of time putting them on their refrigerators.
I bet.
That's great. But, you know, I think it's more than just the bookmarks. I think it's the fact that you talk to each customer and hand them the bookmark, and it's like a human connection. It's a moment, you know, that like you don't get a lot of those these days. Everything is electronic. So there's something about, you know, handing somebody something, but, you know, with kind of a personal touch.
Right. Your genuine passion is definitely bleeding through all of it.
I do try and get them involved in the idea of the film, and
Yeah.
popcorn helps.
Well, your enthusiasm, you know, I think it, you know, it makes it seem more, you know, it gets me excited when I hear how enthusiastic you are about the films and about what's going on. And we're not just gonna talk about this. We actually, there's a screening tomorrow.
We have Creeping Terror screens tomorrow at 6:30 p.m. at the Carver Branch.
It's quite a film. It's, for all intent and purposes, a creeping compost heap from another planet that schlumps along and eats people who've graciously fallen over so that they can be schlumped over.
So it could still be a foreshadowing movie of a future to come.
There is that.
Hasn't been unproven yet.
Has not been disproven.
That's right.
Wow.
Well,
And-
details about that showing are at facebook.com groups Bad Films Fest.
That's facebook.com/groups/Bad Film Fest.
And I tell you what, one I know for sure is you have a showing you do in December. Tell us about that showing.
This year will be our 4th year in a row to screen the classic 1965 touching Christmas movie, Santa Claus Conquers the Martians.
And folks, if you've never seen it, do yourself a favor.
It stars Pia Zadora and Jamie Farr.
Oh, that's awesome.
And
And
if
there
you-
will be popcorn, and that's December 15th at 6:30 p.m. if you're marking your calendars out there. But
Anybody who used to own a Whammo?
Anyone who owns a Whammo air blaster is welcome to bring it to Santa Claus Conquers the Martians.
we didn't even know what that was, so we had to look it up. And indeed, it is a very interesting device. You know,
A relic from the past.
Well, so let's talk a little tiny bit more about the screening tomorrow. So you guys have never had there's plenty of parking at the Carver Branch. The Carver Branch, for people who don't know, it's over on the east side, and it's off of Angelina Street, which is near Rosewood, kind of close to.
We're at the corner of Rosewood and Angelina,
Absolutely.
which, for relative map purposes, is 6 blocks east of Interstate 35, between 11th and 12th.
And you might know it because it is the cool library branch with the awesome mural on the side of it. That is amazing.
One of many, definitely.
Yes, yes. So that, again, film screening is tomorrow at 6:30 at that Carver Branch that we just talked about. So thank you very much, Bill. I think Bill's going to stay with us, but we're gonna have a little break, and then we're going to talk about some other stuff at the library. So let's listen to this.
You're listening to Co-op Radio 91.7 FM, Hornsby, Austin. Radio for people, not for profit.
Co-op Radio features roots programming every morning of the week. This is Rod Moog inviting you to join me for the country, swing, and rockabilly jamboree Thursday mornings from 9 to 11. Our country is classic, our swing is western, and the rockabilly is the early kind from the mid-1950s. Thursday mornings 9 to 11. Look for you there.
My name is Ann Minner, and I am a youth librarian at the Austin Public Library. Picture books without text, or wordless books, can be very exciting to a beginning reader. These books allow the reader to create and tell their own story, and that story can be different every time. Wordless books, rich with illustrations, help children exercise their visual literacy skills, skills which are emphasized in the Common Core state standards. Taking cues from the images and creating a story to tell helps children think through, think about, and think with pictures. Wordless books and more about visual literacy are available at the Austin Public Library.
Next up, we're going to play an excerpt from the library's podcast, also called Volumes.
In this podcast episode called Austin Focus, local activist Lori Renteria tells the origin story of Austin's homeless mascot, Homer the Goose.
May he rest in peace.
Yes. So let's listen to that right now.
My name is Lori Cervenak Renteria. I'm a Yankee by birth, a Texan by choice, and Mexican by marriage. I've lived in Austin since 1979, and I'm here to tell you a story about Homer the homeless goose.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for joining me. So when did you first get to know Homer?
Well, what happened was the Salvation Army was trying to relocate into a newer, better facility. They had been without showers for about 2 years. And the population was growing, and Mayor Cooksey was the affordable housing chair for the National Conference of Mayors. And in 1988, he hosted he called it the National Congress on Affordable Housing and Homelessness. And we had experts from all over the country come to Austin, and we showed off our great community-based development corporations, which were strictly building single-family homes at the time. And we learned from the National Coalition from the Homeless and Mitch Snyder and some homeless advocates from across the nation how we could grapple with our increasing homeless problems in the downtown area.
And this was 88, you said?
In 1988. So a meeting of the local advocates who had all served on the first Mayor's Task Force for the Homeless, which I believe we started in 1985, and we spent almost 3 years coming up with what we called the 5-step plan to end homelessness. And it was kind of built on Pavlov's hierarchy of needs. Mm-hmm. And we met with Louisa Stark, who was the president of the National Coalition at the time, and it was a room full of do-gooders, and she said, all y'all do-gooders, somebody in this room needs to take off their suit, put on their jeans, and get out in the street and organize the homeless people to speak for themselves. All I heard all today during this conference was numbers, and you're never going to get anywhere talking about numbers. You have to let the homeless people tell their stories so that homelessness becomes a face, somebody's brother, somebody's mother, somebody's daughter, somebody's child. And that's the only way you're going to make any progress. Well, I was a college student at St. Edward's University, and I had to do a big service project. And I got elected out of the group to be the one to take off my suit and get in the streets and organize the homeless people. So we were meeting at Central Presbyterian Church downtown, and we had formed a nonprofit called the Austin Homeward Bound, and we were going to do a shelter next to the Salvation Army because the Salvation Army wasn't willing to deal with the basic need of permanent housing, whether it was supportive housing with services or just getting people back into rental housing. They were in the shelter business. So when we started meeting with the homeless folks, these do-gooders on the board of Austin Homeward Bound heard these horrific stories about how people were being mistreated at the Salvation Army, and there were no services, and we had built a health clinic, but there was never anybody there, and just story after story after story. And we helped them, us do-gooders, helped them form their own group. They decided to call themselves the Street People's Advisory Council.
That's a fascinating story. Full story is available on the library podcast at library.austintexas.gov/volumes. Homer the Goose, now taxidermy, is on exhibit at the Manchaca Road branch of the library for the next week or so.
All right, so one other thing we wanted to talk about that is coming up next Tuesday at the library, the East Austin Studio Tour catalogs will be available at all of the Austin Public Libraries, and while supplies last, so...
They go quick.
Yeah, so more info about East at the library, because there will also be artists displaying their work at various libraries on the East Side. Details about that at library.austintexas.gov/East 2016. Which, the catalogs are actually one of my favorite things about East. I love getting to see examples of everyone's work.
Yeah, it's a great catalog of all the artists. If you can't get out, it's really an awesome reference to see what's happening in the city.
Kind of see where the hotbeds of activity are in the community, where people are really creating a lot, at least of visual art. So that's coming up. And then next week on the show, we are going to have, our guest will be Andrew Murphy, and he's going to talk about a number of programs, mainly Controversy and Conversation, which is a film program in partnership with UT Humanities Austin, and they show controversial documentaries, and then they discuss them as a group. Andrew will probably tell us a little bit about some of the other programs he organizes over at the Terrazas branch. They're doing some really, really neat stuff.
Like Oral Lit, which is unfortunately happening tonight. It's too late for you to go to that one, but that is definitely one I would recommend you look out for.
That's a monthly show, yeah, so it's a good call. And then we want to thank Bill Donaldson.
Thanks, Bill, for coming in and telling us your whole life story. That was awesome.
Yeah. And we look forward to that film screening tomorrow night, again, 6:30 at the Carver branch. And
wanted to give special thanks to Writing on the Air for that wonderful introduction to our first time show.
Yes.
We were a little nervous, but they definitely took some edge off for us. Appreciate it.
Very, very kind. Lots of love to them. And if people want to find out more about Volumes, the Austin Public Library radio show, they can visit. You can, the library information is available at library.austintexas.gov/volumes. There's also a Facebook group with more detailed information at facebook.com/group/APL Volumes.
Thanks for listening to Volumes, the Austin Public Library radio show on Co-op 91.7 FM.
A special thanks to our audio engineer, DJ Harris, and our volunteer production assistant, Sev Corson.
And to the musicians who composed and performed our original theme song, Andrew Noble on violin, Kurt Duvall on guitar, and APL's very own Mike Wheat on percussion.
Volumes, the Austin Public Library radio show, airs Wednesdays at 7 p.m. on 91.7 FM Co-op Radio, Hornsby, Austin.
Thanks, y'all.
Bye-bye.